Well, well, well. Well, well, well. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a fun one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to my humble abode. It is currently as we would say in the military, 1:06 in the morning. This is the 18th of February, 2024. UFC 298 has concluded. It is in the books. We are done with it. But there's a lot to get to. So, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. A couple of housekeeping notes. First of all, please give this video a thumbs up. Welcome back to MK. We're not ready to relaunch everything, but we wanted to check in with you and make sure you're doing all right. We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Second of all, please subscribe. We still have many things to do in the MK universe. We hope you come along for the ride. This is going to be a fun post-fight show. I'm so excited to do this show right now. I've got so much to say that I just can't fucking wait to do. So, we're going to get to all of the results. We're going to get to all of your questions. We're going to get to all the stuff that matters, all of the results, all of the analysis, and everything in between. If you don't want spoilers, boy, now is the time to go. I would imagine that you don't really care at this point, but, warnings being what they are. All right? All right. With that out of the way, with that preamble done, let's get this party started, shall we? Let's do that. And we're back. All right, let me make sure everything sounds all right to the folks on the other end. Let's see. BC is sending me hilarious texts about Zuckerberg. Yeah, guys, don't walk out with Zuckerberg. Don't do that. I mean, I realize he's at the star, Volk's at a star level where he's like hobnobbing with billionaires. But leave. You ever seen that meme? You ever seen that meme where it's like a bunch of soldiers and then they're all like outside of a door ready to do some kind of like forced entry, and then there's like 5 of them, and then one of them's like a clown, like obviously like dressed up like a clown. That was that meme. Like Joe Lopez, soldier. Volkanovski, soldier. Eugene Behrman, soldier. Zuck, clown. Okay, but neither here nor there. Let's talk about something. First of all, let's read these results, shall we? UFC 298 took place at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. In your main event, Ilia Topuria, just as he predicted, defeats Alexander Volkanovski inside of 2 rounds, specifically at the 3:32 mark of round number 2 via KO punches. I want to talk about the fight and the complexion and everything else that went into it, but for just a moment, let's review 2 things that I think really we really should get out there. Number 1, a lot was made of this rule of 35, which again is not even my rule. I'm just the guy that appears to have popularized it. Anik mentioned it briefly before the fight had started, but, didn't really say a whole lot about it. But the entire week was about this. Not just the week, the entire promotion around this. I mean, Volkanovski did this commercial with this sports betting company out of Australia dressing like the old man Volk, shows up to the press conference like old man Volk, right? This sort of character. You had fans in attendance dressing up like old man Volk. And, well, that's all heartwarming to see because Volkanovski is absolutely one of the good guys in the game. It all gave me a real bad vibe. Because, of course, we already know the stat, right? And again, the numbers can differ depending on how you want to look at it. If you're going to add in the women's game, you're going to add in the men's game. But here's what you can say unimpeachably, and it's still true today. There is no one in UFC history over the age of 35 who has won a title fight. In the men's division. If at 155 and down. It's never happened. There's a really good reason for that. It's not, as I've said 8 million times, it is not that there is some magic demarcation line in the universe where once you get to this side of it, there's no good. But there is a pattern that I have seen go on in fight sports, having watched several life cycles of fighters now as an adult who has covered this sport. And it's a painful cycle, and I actually hate it, but it's so inevitable that you just can't not notice it anymore. There are going to be exceptions to this, especially in the higher weight classes, right? John Jones coming back at age 36 and then winning the title against Cyril Gane. But, Dude, that Ilia Topuria ain't Cyril Gane, like with the ground game. That's not who that is. You're talking about a hammer. I mean, Volkanovski wasn't fighting some chump tonight. He was fighting a very good fighter. Okay. But the point I want to make is this. Folks are late to catch on to some of these guys, 170, 155 and down. They're late to catch on to how good they are. And by the time that these guys actually do get celebrated, it is almost always at the end of their reign. We talk about the EA curse. I've talked about it on my live chat. I've talked about it here on Morning Kombat in various places. There is no EA curse. The reality is it is so hard to get good enough where by the time you have developed your career and you've beaten all the right people and you finally, maybe you got a belt, and not obviously as everyone's worn a belt, but you've really achieved some status in the fight game. It takes so long for even the very best guys to do that, that by the time they get up there, that the peak is actually either right around the corner or it's already even past. That's the reality, and I hate it for them because this is when they actually get to their peak earning potential. This is when they get to their peak popularity. Dude, Volk was not in Australia tonight, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hand. And he should have. He earned that. I think we can all say that very clearly. Again, one of the good guys, one of the innovators, one of the best champions we've ever seen, certainly in the featherweight division, but I would say independent of weight class. But he was attempting to do something in the fight game that is exceedingly difficult to do. And it's not just a 35-year-old thing. It's coming back from the KO loss to Islam. Now, Ilia is such a hard puncher. I don't know what difference that would have made in the end. I don't know. It's hard to say, but you add in that factor. I mean, I will tell you what happened when Islam knocked him out. There was something that happened in the pit of my stomach, and I was like, we have seen the peak. And I believe that's true. I believe we have seen the peak. I am not arguing that Volkanovski won't get to another title fight. He might. I'm not even saying he won't necessarily win it, although if he does that, that would be a pretty big thing. I don't think he'll actually win. I don't think it'll work that way. Also, I think if you get slept this way, you don't deserve an immediate rematch. I'm not going to cry if they give him one. It'll be fine, but I don't think it's like the best thing to do. I actually think Max is a bit of a tougher matchup for Ilia, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it breaks my heart because by the time these guys get these big contracts and they get these big audiences, and then these buffoon billionaires want to walk them out for their, so they can just be, hey, I'm walking around inside the lion cage with all these lions and tigers and shit. That's what they really want. The peak is already over. If you didn't notice when Volkanovski was like hammering people like Chad Mendes, if you didn't notice the quiet but very compelling victory he had years ago at this point over Jose Aldo, that was the real beginning of his surge, But by the time Islam beat him, and now he turns 35, the peak is probably already over. It's a brutal, brutal, brutal fucking reality. It's a brutal, unforgiving sport. It is so difficult to succeed. It is so difficult to accumulate wins. It is so difficult to beat the guys that Volkanovski has beaten in the way in which he has beaten them. I mean, all of these things are impossible to do. But you only have so many rabbits in your hat. And when you cross a certain age, you just don't take proper inventory of your reflexes slowing, of any kind of psychological holdover effects you might have from God only knows what, about the competitive pressures that are involved, any previous damage you might have taken. It creeps up on you in a way that to this point has proven impossible to get over. Of course, it's not actually impossible. I'm sure somebody will break this rule eventually, right, in the UFC. I know some other people have been out there chirping about how they've done it in other organizations. That's cool. And those are legitimate achievements, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's not what the stat comes back to. That stat, it's just a reflection of observed reality. It's not a universal law, but it tells you a lot about the fight game. Dude, when you really think about how many good fighters from 155 and 145 and 135, 125 even, that have tried to succeed and just cannot in that space. It wasn't for a lack of effort, and it wasn't for a lack of ability. It's what they are attempting is to beat Father Time, and you just cannot do that. You just cannot do that. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say, and this is just a personal thing that kind of drives me nuts. This is to all of the fuckos who all week were like trying to. I mean, here's what's happened, right? We've turned the press conference into mini pro wrestling. That's really what it's become. I mean, people are literally showing up in costume at this point, right? That's what it is. And then people grading the person's ability to do sketch comedy on the fly for either a booing or a cheering audience as like some kind of indication about how a fight would go. You have to be a fucking idiot to do that. You genuinely have to be someone who's like mom drank a bunch when you were in utero, or you ate a bunch of paint chips, or someone hit you in the head with a hammer, or like you had a terrible car accident. It has fuck all to do with actually what good fighters end up doing in the cage. It has nothing to do with it. I mean, yeah, there could be times where like the one time with Aldo and McGregor, it's a big case, obviously, but it was more than just a presser. I mean, that was the whole tour. There was this entire thing. But in general, it means nothing. By the way, Topuria was trying to do that in what, his third or fourth language? How good are you at playing the dozens with somebody who is, obviously Volkanovski was at ease with all of that stuff. How good are you in your third language in doing all of that? It's not so easy. It's not so easy. And someone wrote to me earlier this week. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to hear this. Someone wrote to me earlier this week being like, yeah, I don't know if Topuria sounded like himself. And I'm like, you should hear him in Spanish. I'm going to play you something. If you speak Spanish, you'll know what he's going to say here. I want to play this for you so you can hear it. Don't take my word for it. I'll translate when this is done. I want you to listen to this man, and I want you to understand whatever you think you know about him when he speaks English, you don't know shit. I'm going to play this for you. Hang on. This is what he said. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to play this for you.
Yo no soy ni Korean Zombie, no soy el trapo ni de Jair, no soy ni el paquete de Brian Ortega, no soy ni la nariz torcida de Max Holloway, soy Ilia Topuria y lo voy a machacar en el primer asalto de una forma espectacular y al que le quepa la mínima duda que se joda.
Okay. He basically says, he goes through the list of it. I'm not Korean Zombie. I'm not Brian Ortega's package. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. I'm not Max Holloway's crooked nose. I'm Ilia Topuria. And if you have even the slightest doubt, then I'm going to go in there and I have to go back and listen to the word. But he doesn't say demolish, but that I'm going to win spectacularly. Fuck you. And he delivers it with authority. That you want to understand him. You got to hear him in his native languages. So all of this fucking chirping about who wins press events. Here's my question to all those folks. Who gives a fuck? How about that? Who gives a fuck about any of that? It doesn't mean dick at the end of the day. It's just pro wrestling for MMA fans who just need a little bit of pro wrestling during fight week. And that's fine if you enjoy it on those terms. But this whole thing like, Volk's in his head. Volk's going to teach him a lesson. Volk's in his head. Volk's going to teach him a lesson. Did he? Is that what happened? What lesson was that? Okay. Let's talk about the fight. I saw some people give Ilia the first round. I did not. I gave Volkanovski the first round, which should not be much of a surprise that he won the first round anyway, right? Like, this is a guy who he's going to have more ring craft in general. He's going to have a game plan. You knew he was going to be doing it based on movement, right? You knew he was going to be going side to side. I tried to see if you go back to the third Max fight, it was the same direction he was going the entire time because he was trying to solve for Max's jab. You did not get that this time. You got, lateral movement in both directions. But what you saw from Volk was a lot of hesitation to exchange in mid-range, which you can understand. I actually thought that was a great game plan. A lot of Topuria getting low and trying to jab, so then Volk trying to hit him with a middle kick as like a counter to it, which I thought was pretty good. Not just when he lowered level, but when he jabbed in general. I thought that was pretty good. Obviously, inside leg kicks, outside cut kicks, calf kicks, the whole 9 yards, really trying to destabilize him, turn him, make him move, make him hesitant, disrupt his base, disrupt his balance, not show a sitting target. There was a little bit of clinching that happened, I think we're towards the end of the first, a little bit in the second, before things went south. But that I don't think that played. I thought Volk did pretty well. Volk's strong, so I thought he and Topuria, I thought Volk actually got slightly the better of the stuff in the clinch, but there wasn't there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of it. But what ended up happening in the second basically is you saw Volkanovski. I thought Topuria was having a little bit more of a hard time solving at when Volk was at southpaw with him. I'll have to review the footage to see exactly how it all went down. But he was having a little bit of trouble. But then he gets cornered. He gets pushed back. Again, I have to go see where the geography was on the ring itself. And then he goes back to orthodox. You see Topuria does this a lot. He'll go low, come high. And then what you notice from Topuria is he doesn't go low and then come high like he's touching and then back out. He actually destabilizes the entire thing by pushing into Volkanovski. Volkanovski actually did really well to kind of roll with it, and the first one bounced over his shoulder, but he stayed on top of it. So then he came with the left, and then, by the way, he framed off of this hand, slid to the side, and then came from this side when he ultimately fired the right hand. So he semi-disguised it, changing the angle of it, putting it a little bit at a place where Volkanovski was kind of expecting this, and he got hit kind of from this angle. But this way in which, I mean, it's not the same thing he did to Jai Herbert, but it's similar. If you go back and you watch the Jai Herbert thing, he had trouble with the distance, and so he goes body-head to kind of close, and then it's the combination punching they're in. And, dude, once he's got you trapped up against that space, it's fucking curtains for you. I mean, the margin of error that you have with a guy like that, who can punch like that, and is durable like that, is youthful like this, has all of his energy underneath him, has all of the self-belief that he needs. But in just speaking strategically and tactically, once he collapses your position and then he's able to frame and hold you against the fence as he changes angles and then comes on the side, it's curtains for you. It's curtains. There's no one in that division who can stand up to that. Not even Max Holloway, who has a fucking legendary chin. I mean, maybe Max wouldn't go completely to sleep, but, Max is going to be in a world of hurt with something like that lands. Like, there's just nobody's going to stand up to something like that. This is what he does. He takes his time. He was getting touched up. I thought the jab of Volkanovski was touching him up. Obviously, we talked about any number of the different kicks, throwing him high to occupy Ilia's backhand. I mean, some of that I thought was great. I thought all of that was working. It's not like Volkanovski showed up with some shitbag game plan. He didn't. He showed up with a great game plan, I thought. A little bit, people are going to say, oh, he was trying to keep too much distance. Well, dude, I mean, just think about your options here a little bit. It's true he was doing that, but the reality is, what are your alternatives? If you're trying to then, let's say, okay, what would be the other option? All right, you cannot exchange with him in mid-range. I think we can all agree with that now. So what are your options? You could go to the clinch, and he had some success there, but there wasn't meaningful offense, and that can go bad depending if you hang out there too long. So that's not really an option, or not a great one. You could go for the takedown, and I think that would have been disruptive, but Ilia's got great takedown defense, and I'm just going to be honest, on the ground itself, he's better than Volkanovski. Right? Black belt in jiu-jitsu, has been training forever. His pure ground skills are going to be better. I'm not saying he could have held Volk down and beaten him up, but I can understand why Volk didn't lean on that as like a forward part of the strategy either. I also get that. So look, here's the thing. Volkanovski did not look bad, right? I mean, relatively speaking, he did not look bad. He did not look like, physically in the second Islam fight. I got some hair here. In the second Islam fight, he had what Stephen Breadman Edwards calls a little bit of loose change. Granted, it was up a weight class at 155, but he had a little bit of extra weight on him in a way that you could tell he wasn't quite training. You didn't see that this time. Obviously, again, you're down to 145, but I thought he came in great shape. Dude, he's got Joe Lopez and Eugene Behrman in his corner. Do you think that they lacked for a good game plan? Of course not. They had a great game plan, or at least a very good one that was as workable as the conditions would allow. And he was doing well to avoid most of what Ilia was throwing at him. Again, I thought he won the first round and was probably on his way to winning the second, although there was plenty of time left, so it's hard to say. But the margin of error. That guy can shut your lights off like that. That guy can choke you out like that. That guy is physical at all times. You just don't have the ability to take a punch from him and then just eat it. Topuria does. Topuria did have that luxury. So the trade-off that Topuria was making was that I'm going to lose probably longer portions of the fight, or at least longer portions of the round, and that's going to be okay because all I need are just a couple of opportunities to connect, and then boom goes the dynamite. And to borrow the boom word again, he lowered the boom, and that was all she wrote. Simple as that. He is very, very good at cornering. He's very, very good at being patient. He's very, very good at using an entry to come up on top. And he's very good at maintaining and collapsing that space so that you kind of have to reshuffle backwards. By that point, you're up against the fence. He has framed. He has reset the angle. And then it's Armageddon when he balls up the fist. It is Armageddon. By the way, little note. Remember there were people saying Topuria should fight Paddy Pimblett? I mean, I've said this before. If you like Paddy, you would get him killed with something like that. You get him killed. Topuria, there was one argument that everyone made pre-fight that is a true argument, but also the wrong argument. And what everybody said was, or not everybody, but everyone who thought that Topuria was going to get washed, what they all said was, well, look at what Volk has done. Volk beat Holloway 3 times. I know some of that's controversial, but he did. He beat him 3. It's certainly in the last one. Ain't nothing controversial about that one. He beat him 3 times. He beat Korean Zombie, right? He beat Jose Aldo. He beat Chad Mendez. He beat Brian Ortega. He beat Yair Rodriguez. He beat all these guys. The styles he had solved for, the difficulties he had solved for. Topuria hadn't shown anything like that. That is true. I mean, now there's a little bit more to add to his resume, but prior to tonight, that is true. But guys, that doesn't mean anything. When, for example, when John Jones beat Shogun, do you think that John Jones had anything on his resume that was even approximating the 2005 Grand Prix run in Pride, the middleweight Grand Prix run? That's the greatest tournament run in MMA history. John Jones didn't have anything like that on his resume, and he had some nice scalps. He didn't have that. When Chris Weidman beat Anderson Silva, do you think that Chris Weidman was his win over Mark Munoz, which was devastating, but was that on par with what a guy like Anderson Silva had produced? No, of course not. That's not the point. The point is you're not fighting the guy who beat those guys. You're fighting a later version, which could be bad depending on the circumstances, or if they're older, it could be quite advantageous for you, even at middleweight. But this idea that, if you haven't proven what the champion has proven, oh, well, you can just calmly assert that the champion is going to win. That is not how MMA works at all, and I hope you can see that now today. Again, when you watch a few of these life cycles, when you're an old gray piece of shit like me, and you've been around this game a little bit, and you've watched fighters balloon and then collapse and then the whole life cycle, and then they retire, then they get old, then they go on GoFundMe to get their health care paid for, the whole 9 yards. When you've seen that, patterns begin to emerge, and you kind of have to be a little bit silly to not notice some of these patterns. Contenders often do not have resumes that match the champions that they beat, but they still beat them just the same. So what does that tell you? It is not a reliable indicator about how the matchup itself is going to go. Matter of factly, let's look at some of these numbers. By the way, I will say this. Volk walking out to Men at Work is, in my judgment, an all-time classic now. Like that, when guys come out to music that's cultural, and I realize that I don't know how cultural that is, but it's certainly a point of national pride that they have this very visibly and notably Aussie song, and he's walking out to it, and it's it's amazing to watch. It's one of the best walkouts, like Max's Hawaiian Kickboxer, stuff like that, really cultural stuff like that. Canción del Mariachi is not quite like that, but I thought it was a cool thing that Topuria came out to. All right, let's look at these numbers if we can here and see what we can deduce from them. Topuria moves to 15-0 at this point. Yeah, Volkanovski outlanded him numerically. This doesn't count for shit, but he did outland him numerically. He outlanded him in total strikes 107-78, and then in strikes landed total. Again, these are quantitative totals, not qualitative totals. He outlanded him 47-36, and then total strikes, significant strikes landed 47-35. That would be Volkanovski to Topuria. Topuria is credited with a knockdown and 3 seconds of control time. Let's look at the targeting. Targeting by Volkanovski. Well, that's interesting. Targeting by Volkanovski, 44% to the head, 23% to the body, 31% to the leg. Topuria, 48% to the head, 34% to the body. That made sense. And then 17% to the head. He went to the leg kicking a little bit. Turned him with it in the first round, Topuria did. But it wasn't like a huge part of his game. But some of the body punching, again, that is like a number one distance closer for him. Down to the body, up, collapse position, go again. He just does, not in the same combination, but, something like that. Let's look at Volkanovski in his not the Makhachev fight. Let's look at it in the Rodriguez fight, or the Rodriguez fight. I can't do it very well here at 2 a.m. Okay, targeting, head 72%, body just 21% to the leg. Let's go to his previous title defense, which would be before that, the third Max Holloway fight. Look at his targeting. Yeah, again, 76% to the head, 9% to the body, 14. So he seems to be like 70, 75 to the head, single digits, close to 10% for the body, and then around 15% to the leg. That seems to be his normal breakup, right? That's his normal breakup. And then one more time for this fight, it was 44, 23, 31. So he had to really play with his offense in a way that I'm not sure he was fully comfortable with. Maybe that explains getting positionally overrun in the way that he was. That could be part of it, certainly. Again, 93% at distance versus Topuria's 80%. He got 11% in the clinch, I guess. I don't have to go back and look at it, but yeah, he had to change his offense enough where it just wasn't potent to really deter Ilia, and then all he needed was a little bit of a window, and then it was Armageddon. For him. I will say that I did not like Topuria pre-fight arguing that, like, hey, I'm not going to give Max Holloway a title shot. I'm not going to give Brian Ortega a title shot. I'm not going to give Yair a title shot. I'm like, well, dude, if you're going to be the champion of the weight class, you need to defend the title. I mean, this is very ridiculous, to be perfectly honest, to even say something like that. So I don't think that will last. I don't think the UFC is going to really stand for that. He did call out Conor McGregor after the fight was over, which I think is kind of an interesting thing that he sort of sees himself. I know he was getting, again, Topuria was getting shit for it this week, comparing himself to Conor or doing things that seemed reminiscent of Conor. And some of it, it's like I don't know what you want from these guys. It's like Conor, hey, here's a blueprint of an enormously successful guy who does it. Maybe we should copy some things. Oh, no, you should get your own path. Right, dude. Everybody copies everybody else. Yes, on some level, having a little bit of originality, a little bit of spice of it is kind of a good thing. But in general, people copy other people, and fighters are going to copy other fighters, especially a very successful one. It makes, the least surprising thing you could have told me was like that was the issue. I will say, I guess it was this morning I saw it, or maybe yesterday morning I saw it, that there was this incredible video that, it was, or maybe it was 2 days ago, whenever it was all of these Spanish or Spain-centric, I'll explain that in a minute, celebrities like Rafael Nadal, obviously the tennis player, Iker Casillas, it was Rafael Valverde from, who's technically Uruguayan, but he plays in Spain, he plays for Real Madrid, and it was just all of these celebrities. Koke was on there from Atletico Madrid. Sergio Ramos today put out a big old statement about it, or a video in support of him. Dude, these are titans of Europe, titans of one of the bigger economies in Europe. I am telling you, man, I cannot, dude. Iker Casillas, or Casillas, however you want to say it. Iker is it's the first guy was Nadal. The second guy in the video was Iker, who has like 21 million followers on Instagram and is widely considered to be one of the very best goalkeepers of all time in the sport of soccer/football. That's and Iniesta was on there, one of the guys who was part of the Barcelona dream team, along with Xavi and Messi and all these guys. Like, dude, people who are like the best representatives of the biggest cultural items in world sport, in Spanish sport. All of these dudes and ladies were rallying behind this guy. I don't think folks understand how big he can be in Europe. He can be a monster star. And of course, he can open up other countries as well. Georgia's a small economy, but you never know what kind of network effects it could have. He's just 27 years of age. It is remarkable what he might be able to do for the UFC, for his own brand, for MMA. This is the brutal ass welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the brutal life cycle of MMA, where it is very hard to have somebody that you really like as a fight fan, not because they're not good, but because they can be as good as Alexander Volkanovski is. They can be that good. 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. They can be that good, and it's still not enough. And the rain on the top, to borrow the words of the notorious B.I.G., was short like leprechauns. Even for guys like that. It's just insanely difficult. But I think folks may not really understand. So getting back to the contender thing, dude, Ilia versus Yair, huge fight. And you guys, if you don't know this, they have been squabbling in the media. Ilia versus Brian Ortega, huge fight. Ilia versus Max is a phenomenal fight. I don't know if they're going to go those directions. My hunch is that even though this was one-sided, it's not the word, even though the finish is without any kind of dispute and the winner is quite clear, I think that because of Volkanovski's status, they might try and give him another automatic rematch. Maybe he goes to Spain to do it. That'd be kind of cool, I think, for all of UFC. I don't think they're actually going to put that in Spain, but one never knows. I think that they could do that. That'd be kind of interesting, for sure. And, of course, it raises a question about what's next for Volkanovski, right? So let's talk about him for just a second here. When is, let's see, old Volk. So he is 35. Obviously, he just turned it in September. They'll probably fight before that. So, I mean, just you go back to his last fights. He's lost 3 of his last 4. Now, granted, 2 of those up a weight class, 1 of those on short notice. All 3 of those were title fights. The guy who beat him twice is probably the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, and then we already know the story about here today. So it's not like he's fighting chumps. It's not like he won't win again. That's really not my belief. I think he'll win again for sure. But I do think this is an inflection point. In his career. I don't think you can look at 3 losses at age 35 in this division and then say, oh, a rebound is really possible. Some kind of a rebound is really possible. That's true. Yes. Some kind of a rebound is definitely very possible. But are you going to pick him to beat Ilia next time? I'm not. You have to be super, super, super durable to beat a guy like Topuria. You have to be super durable. You have to be well-rounded, and you have to be active. For that reason, I think Holloway kind of makes it an interesting matchup in a way that maybe Volkanovski is not, even though Volkanovski's obviously gotten the better of Max 3 different times. But styles make fights, ladies and gentlemen. They certainly do. So, one more reminder to everyone. The rule of 35, boys and girls. I didn't make it. I didn't come up with it. But I certainly popularized it. And it caught my attention for a very good reason. It's one of the few stats where everybody in MMA, lots of people in MMA constantly want to ignore the role of age because they want to believe in heroic tales and they want to believe in the fighter, male or female, that they really adore, and they want to believe in these stories that are possible. And up at 185 and 205 and heavyweight, hey, that is possible. Very possible. Like, you don't have to worry about those fuckers aging at all. Just let them get to 40. I mean, who cares? But the business at 155 and below it's a different sport. It's a different sport. 155 and down is just a different sport. At the elite level, it's a different sport. You have the worldwide participatory talent pool is so much bigger. The level of refined skill is so much greater. All of these guys have knockout power. Not all of them, but it's a constant threat if you're going to fight at the elite. So many black belts in jiu-jitsu, so many people who can wrestle, so much youth. I mean, it's just a fucking murderer's row. And God bless Volkanovski. He did better than just about almost anyone else you'll ever see. But on this night, given these circumstances, it was too much to ask. It was simply too much to ask. So if they had to do a different game plan, what would Volk do differently? I mean, there would have... you know what he might do? He might clinch a little bit more rather than retreating. I bet that they'll look at this and say that the retreating was a bad idea, that actually going head into Topuria and locking up with him would make more sense. That also carries risk. It's not like that's not without problems, but going into, like, if he's coming into blitzing, meeting fire with fire rather than trying to retreat. Izzy can do that stuff for the most part, right? Like that practice head movement where you're kind of on the other end. They can do that, but Volkanovski's not necessarily that guy, not against someone who is this kind of controlling and dominant a puncher in the way that Topuria is. So I don't know what they're going to do. By the way, if I need to see, I want to text, see if there's been any announcement for UFC 300. Let's see. What? Pereira versus Jamal Hill is going to headline UFC 300? Okay. I mean, I don't hate it. Okay. We'll get to that a little bit later. That's a strange one. That's a strange one. I don't quite get that. All right, well, whatever. So there you have it, folks. Can't say I didn't warn you. Folks were all week badgering me the whole time. Topuria's going to get taught a lesson, blah, 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 blah. And I just sat there being like, I wouldn't have been surprised if Volkanovski had won. I'd be a little surprised if Volkanovski had won. I would have been a little surprised, but not totally. I wouldn't have been like shocked or something like that. But like, he was going to go in there and teach Topuria a lesson. I don't think you guys knew who you were dealing with. Topuria is that guy. He's been that guy for some time. He just needed the right opportunity to show it. Your margin of error against somebody like that at this stage of his career is infinitesimally small. You cannot fuck up with him at all. He just needs the littlest. And his ability to find, he's not some brawler who's out there swinging, right? This is not, sorry, I got something in my eye. This is not Paulo Costa. This is not Paulo Costa just, kind of, No. This guy is surgical and has a system and is disciplined. You just have no room for error. You have no room for error. So I hope everyone understands that now. It's hard to be an MMA fan, man. It really is. It's hard to be an MMA fighter for any number of reasons. It's hard to be like a champion. It's so difficult to get the title, and it's so incredibly hard to have a successful title reign that lasts as long as you hope. Here is a certainty in the fight game that I hope everybody understands. And every fighter should understand this too. And I know it's like, oh, who are you, Luke? You didn't fight. Fair enough, I didn't. But I have been around long enough to have seen this movie over and over and over and over again. And the lesson goes like this. Your career is going to end eventually. This is true for every fighter, Ilia too. And it might happen sooner than you think. Or you can think of it as your peak is going to end. And that also might be sooner than you think. These guys, they can't fathom the idea, especially in the smaller weight classes, of like age limiting. We'll talk about it in a minute. You had Henry Cejudo at age 37 trying what he tried against Merab. Dude, it's at 135 pounds. Good luck. You're going to have to be way, way, way better than those guys, which is going to be really difficult to do at age 37 at 135 pounds. But okay, if you have questions about the main event, we can come back to it. But let's talk about some of the other fights on this card. Because, by the way, the fights tonight, I thought, were excellent. I know some folks didn't like the Garry and Neal fight. I didn't hate it as much as y'all did. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it as much as y'all did. But in general, I thought it was a very, very, very good night of fights. The main card was superb. The matchmaking was excellent. As I mentioned before, you had two fighters on this card. Not one, but two fighters on this card who averaged more than 6 takedowns per 15 minutes. Merab and then Anthony Hernandez. We'll talk about him in just a second as well because he fucking balled out like a beast on top of it. All right, but let's talk about Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker defeats Paulo Costa Bohashinia 29-28 on two of the judges' scorecards, 30-27 on the other one. Boy, I got to say, I don't understand that one. And I know what folks are going to respond with, well, he was winning most of the round before he got rocked. That's true. ... But he got rocked. He got rocked quite badly. That is by far, who took someone Who did the most significant damage in that round? It is clearly Paulo Costa. Costa not only landed a shot that was the most damaging of any shot relative to what Robert Whittaker had landed, but on top of it, who took the other guy closest to the precipice of defeat? Costa. Costa should win that round every single time. I don't quite get that. However, he couldn't keep it up in rounds 2 and 3. Here was a guy who had difficulty cornering Robert Whittaker, who had real difficulty trying to counter him. His jab, I thought, was, for Paulo Costa, pretty good. I thought his jab was pretty good, but not as good as Rob's. Rob's was better. I thought his leg kicking was good, but I thought Rob had just the right answer for it in general. Again, we're talking after round 1. And more to the point, the combination punching of Robert Whittaker off of those blitzes, you just had Costa chasing ghosts. He couldn't find him. He couldn't do anything about it. No wrestling involved that I can recall in that one at all. This was at distance. And, dude, this was a gutsy win for Robert Whittaker. I mean, he was in a bad way at the end of round 1. He had not much time after that. He does get, the break of the first round, and then comes out in the second round driven, but not reckless, focused, sticking to the game plan and having enough offense, not being there to get hit for the most part. Again, obviously Costa got his licks in, but nothing truly substantive after that. And he was dealing on him at times, again, with the combination punching, some of his own jabbing, the blitzing that we know him about. This was like, it's kind of funny. It was in many ways somewhat vintage Robert Whittaker. I'd actually say what makes it the most impressive to me is, even though Costa is limited as a fighter and he is not on Rob's level, he is dangerous, number one, and this was the most mature performance I had ever seen from him. I'd actually never seen him fight this maturely before, where he wasn't, there was a little bit of recklessness the whole time, and, he's jabbing and then bringing it back to his waist, and which can have some advantages, but in his case, it's mostly a bit of a lazy jab. But, he was much more disciplined than he normally is, and he didn't get the knockout, not knockout, the big shot he landed, he didn't do it from punching a guy at mid-range while the other guy was up against the fence, which is where like most of his other best work, where he's just bombing on a guy. You didn't see that this time. He actually set that spinning heel kick up and landed it quite nicely, I thought. So Rob had to deal with the best version of Costa to date. Now, maybe not the best one in terms of like fan entertainment, maybe not the best one in terms of like landing the big power shot, but in terms of a focused and precise attack, a guy who, is, again, skill relative to Rob is limited, but this was the best version that he had to offer. Let me look at some of the stats in this particular contest if we can. Yeah, Whittaker just overall outlanding him. These are going to go round by round. Whittaker in the first round, 38-27. These are numeric totals again, but he did get rocked real badly. 32-26, Whittaker landed in the second, and then 25-14. He had Costa chasing ghosts in that third round. And then Whittaker failed on one takedown. Oh, that's right. He did try and just really turn him with that one. He didn't really try and take him down. And then you look at the targeting. This is very obvious from Robert Whittaker. 29% to the leg, 66% to the head, just 4% to the body, right? He goes to the leg and to the head, not a whole lot else. Costa, 58% to the head, didn't headhunt nearly as much, just 58 in terms of targeting, 11% to the body and 29% to the leg. That's actually pretty, that's what I mean. He's not on Rob's level, right? But not many people are. And for him to put together, I thought a reasonably well-mixed offense, it made the job difficult for Rob. He's a puncher as well. He's a heavy kicker. He's a heavy striker. Like, that's not an easy task to accomplish, but he absolutely got it done. And he got it done basically having to work out of a deficit that he got himself into in the first round. That is all-time shit from Robert Whittaker. Dude, Robert Whittaker, man, every time someone tries to count him out, every time someone says, oh, he's finally, okay, well, he got the rematch against Izzy and it didn't go well, and then he got knocked out by DDP, and it's probably going to be curtains for him there. Remember, he's only 33, and he's fighting up at 185 pounds. He has a lot of life left in him. And the resolve that he has to come back from these bad defeats and get back on the horse and apply his game and continue to improve and really stay committed to the process is extremely admirable from him. Extremely. I don't think a lot of people understand the mental resolve you have to have gone through 2 wars with Yoel Romero and everything he did during his title reign, and then to lose to Izzy, and then to go back and you're fighting Cannonier, and you're fighting Vettori, and you're fighting Till, and all this stuff. And you get the rematch, and it doesn't go your way, and then you end up with DDP, and that doesn't go your way, and then you come back here and you get this win after getting badly rocked in the first round. Dude, he is the Aussies, man. They keep sending us their best guys, it seems like, right? In terms of like people and sportsmen. Volkanovski, good person, good sportsman. Rob Whittaker, good person, good sportsman. They keep sending us their best like this. And at least in this particular case, he got his hand raised. Extremely, extremely difficult to do what he's done to this point. Let me see if there's anything I've missed from that run up to this point. Yeah, no, I get the Marvin Vettori win and then Gastelum. Yeah, all that stuff. Till, Cannonier. Yeah, I forgot about the Gastelum fight. That was another one. That was fight of the night. You know, so he's got 3 losses since 2019, 2 to Izzy and 1 to Dricus, and these were all title fights. Other than that, bro, he's beaten these guys. Paulo Costa, how old is he? He is currently 32. I mean, he's missed a lot of time, man. I mean, obviously, again, you know, it's 185 and 32 is hardly old, but he's missed a lot of time. He didn't fight all of, 2023. Now here in 2024, he was gone for like a year and a half after the Luke Rockhold fight. I thought that he showed some signs of life in this fight to a degree, but I think there needs to be steadier rotation of competition. Competing this infrequently cannot benefit him the most long term. So what would be next for him? I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. So is Izzy gonna fight Dricus? Are they gonna give it to Rob? Is Izzy gonna have to fight Rob before they fight Dricus? I don't really know what they're gonna do. I guess Rob could fight Sean Strickland. That's an interesting one, dude. Rob versus Sean Strickland. How does that go? Jesus, that's a hell of a fight, right? Very good timing. Blitzing offense against shut down kind of Philly shell MMA style, guard. When I say guard, I don't mean the legs, but this kind of standing guard. That's a hell of a fight. I would love to see that. Winner gets a title shot. I'd be all right with that. So I guess we'll see what happens with him, but that seems like a reasonable inference about how that's going to go. All right, going further down the list if we can. Okay, so everyone hated this dude. Everyone hates this guy. Ian Machado Garry defeats Geoff Neal. Split decision. So 2 judges had it 30-27 for Garry, and then 1 had it 29-28. And people are like, oh, if you had it 30-27 for Garry, you're out of your mind. I don't think so. I did not. I had it 29-28 for Garry. But I can understand how you would get one. You would give him the first round, even though I don't think you should. I think Neal should get the first one. But then the second and the third round, to me, belong to Neal. Belong to Garry. I'm sorry. And so he would get, that's how he won on my scorecard, 29-28. He got those 2. But I could see how he would get all 3. People think that, like, a 30-27 scorecard, because it's not the most correct card, that it can't be a correct card. And I have bad news for you about MMA judging. There is not one scorecard in many, many cases that is acceptable. There is not one. There is usually a range of them. And here's the problem, dude. Everyone and their brother hates this guy. I don't have any feelings negatively towards him at all. I think a lot of the shit he's been through is real stupid, but I don't know him as a person. Maybe he does suck. I don't know. So I don't really care one way or the other. But what I can say is that you're not going to convince me that the assessment of the fight is made independent of the feelings people have about Ian Garry. Because if you think this is the first time Ian Garry fought like this, what the fuck you been watching? I mean, he didn't have as much offense this time. Okay, fair enough. But like a guy who fights long range on his horse and avoids the offense of his opponents when they kind of charge in or try to corner him, this is what he does. Like, none of what he did today should in any way be surprising. And I wasn't sure he was going to pass this test, but he did. Although, again, if you got... By the way, can you have a fight where one judge scores it 30-27 for one guy and another judge scores it 29-28 for the other guy, and for that to make sense? I know this is going to make people's head explode. Yes, it can. This is, to me, a problem with the judging system, but as the judging system is constructed, is that kind of thing possible? Yes, it is. It is very possible. Listen, Garry didn't blow me away on this one. I thought what he did was, I thought for sure Neal was going to be able to get, I thought Neal was going to do something like what Topuria was going to do, or what Topuria did to Volk. I thought he was going to get something like that, where he was going to corner him, land a big shot, and it was going to be curtains. And that's really not exactly how it went. First of all, Garry's defense, in terms of avoiding the blitz and rolling out to exit, was much better as the fight wore on. By the time the third round happened, Neal didn't have much to offer him really at all in that particular context. More to the point, dude, those knees that he landed up the middle as the blitz from Neal would take place, I thought were superb. I was shocked he was throwing those. I was like, I didn't know he had it in him, to be perfectly honest with you. So those were phenomenal. Some of the stuff long range I thought was also pretty good. Some of the leg kicking he was doing was, I thought, pretty good, back and forth. But the knees up the middle were tremendous. The timing on them was excellent. His takedown defense, or his ability to not get overwhelmed in the clinch, his ability to break up off the clinch, was very respectable as well. Neal had a hard time underhooking, head on the opposite side, keeping him there. He was actually able to get same side underhooking and then circle out off the fence. He did that very well. And people are like, oh, he ran the whole time. Guys, it's name of the game, hit and don't get hit. People are going to do this. And I know people are going to hate this because, again, everybody wants to fucking dunk on this guy. And again, I don't give a shit. Dunk on him or don't. I don't care. But I'm not judging him based off what has happened in his marriage. I just don't care even a little bit. Or what's happened in his house. Don't care even a little bit. I'm just judging what's happening in the cage. Guys, if you don't want him to do that, cheer for the fighter who takes that away from him. What he is doing is perfectly legal. What he is doing is perfectly strategic. It's not thrilling or fun, but it's perfectly strategic. And it's the same answer that you're always going to get in fighting, which is, if you don't like it when someone's doing it, make him stop. Take it away from him. Did Neal go for takedowns? No. Okay, or not very effectively. I mean, they were clinching along the fence line and then up against the cage itself, and then he couldn't get anything from that. Is he even credited with one? Let's see. Did they even credit him with a takedown attempt? No. He's not even credited statistically with a takedown attempt. And not a lot of offense. 67 total significant strikes landed to the 46 of Geoff Neal. Let's look at the overall numbers per round. Garry 20-18 in round 1. Garry 23-17 in round 2. Garry, third round, obviously much better for him, 24-11. So he got better as the fight wore on as well. Dude, he's a good fighter. I was actually impressed is the strong word, because he didn't show dynamic skill per se, but I wasn't sure he was going to pass this test. I mean, beating Neil Magny is one thing, who's very, very, relatively speaking, very old. Geoff Neal is still pretty young, big power in his hands, battle tested. I don't know. I don't know how that one's going to go. And he had trouble finding him. He had trouble landing on him. Again, just 11 significant strikes landing for him in the third round. And his targeting was about the same as actually as Ian's, 54-58, 21-26, 23-14. That's interesting. He couldn't find him. But the name of the game is to hit and not get hit. So here's my point. I'm not telling you have to like that. You don't have to like that. I'm not even telling you have to like him. I don't care if you like him or not. I don't know the guy. I've never interviewed him. Don't know him. You know what I mean? Your call. I find some of this shit to be obviously high school nonsense, but whatever. Like who you like and dislike who you want to dislike. But if you're just evaluating him as a fighter, this was not a super dynamic performance. I wouldn't give this an A or an A-. But a B or a B+, yeah, I'd give it one of those, sure. Not for excitement, but for sticking to a game plan, for avoiding the worst that you're... I mean, did you see the best of Geoff Neal today? No. Who took that away from him? Ian did. All that movement gave him a lot of problems. All the stabbing knees up the middle gave him problems. All of the paw to make him cover in the clinch and then come over with the elbow, all of that was him. He made him second guess. He made him not be able to get found. He made him do all of that stuff. You have to respect it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to cheer for it, but you have to respect it. Or you can not respect it, and then he can fight someone else that you maybe want him to beat, and he'll beat that guy, and you can just be continuously frustrated again. That's an option as well. You're allowed to have that one. I can't make you feel any other different ways about it, but my recommendation is you don't have to like the person, but you should respect the skill that they showed in beating an opponent like Geoff Neal when he's only 26 years old, Ian Garry. So not a dynamic fight, not a thriller. Certainly on the rest of this card, it would be the worst fight on the main card by a million miles. But I saw people being like, that's the worst fight I've ever seen. I'm like, guys, we just came off of Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva. Please be fucking serious. Like, you can't be serious. I mean, Ryan Clark was out there being like, they should just, and that was a bad take, but Ryan Clark was out there being like, we should just shut down women's MMA. I mean, Gary's fight wasn't fun. It wasn't fun, but, there's just so much analysis of this fight that is laundered through everyone deciding that they don't like him, and then they're using that as like, oh, that's what the actual fight analysis is. No, it's not. You can separate how you feel about him and then the fight analysis, and then inside the fight analysis, there's plenty to dislike in there too. It's not like we give it a rave review, but like people being like, oh, this was a horrific fight. It was all right. It was whatever, but he performed pretty ably, I think, given the circumstances. Let's talk about this one. Merab Dvalishvili defeating Henry Cejudo 29-28 across the board. So he loses the first round. He gets rocked in that round. He also gets taken down in that round. I can't wait to see the stats on this one because Merab is a fucking animal. Jesus, what? No way. He held Cejudo to 29 total significant strikes. He landed 5. Merab did. He landed 5 of 11 takedowns. Cejudo 1 of 7. Are you shitting me? Wow. Actually, Cejudo got the takedown in the second round. Excuse me. But he did have... he had control time on top because I guess there was... I forget exactly how he got on bottom, but you get the idea. Dude, listen to these numbers. 16-11 for significant strikes in round 1, but Henry had the big punch that rocked him. I think overall controlled the round's offense for the most part. Round 2, he fell off a cliff. 34 significant strikes to Henry's 9. 34-9. And then in round 3, 24-9. Merab gets 2 of 4 takedowns in round 2, and then 2 of 5 takedowns in round 3. Henry goes 1 for 5 in round 2, and then 0 for 2 in takedowns in round 3 itself. Going heavy to the leg, Henry did. That was very successful. Maybe that's what it was. I forget how he got him down, but he was very successful with that early. But then, dude, when he was in that first round and he was bouncing Henry and he was going side to side and he was feinting and he was seeing everything that was coming, Merab was in trouble then. And Merab was coming. He was throwing a shot and then getting square with him, and that's when he was getting tagged. Now, he eventually kind of corrected for that a little bit. He would roll out a little bit to the side to avoid it. But when he was in that space, it was not going well for him. But dude, it's 135 pounds. Merab is 32 years of age, and independent of that, might have the best gas tank I've ever seen in all of my years in mixed martial arts. People are like, oh, he should teach a conditioning class. How did he not go win the CrossFit Games already? I mean, I just never even understand. I don't know how strong his pressing or his snatch or his clean and jerk is, but good Lord, dude. I mean, the guy has just the most insane gas tank I've ever seen in my whole fucking life. By the time the second round came around, at 37 years of age, at 135 pounds, Henry's energy fell off a cliff. Because of course it did. You're just not allowed to age gracefully in this weight class. You're not. You're not allowed to. It's not going to happen for you. It is unforgiving. We feed the bones of the elderly to the young in this sport. They're not going to allow it. A 5-year gap and you're over the age of 35. Oh, it's curtains for you, bro. It's curtains for you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. And he slowed down. And dude, once he slowed down, the ball game was totally different. The punches were labored. He was not nearly as active. The takedowns were much more ready. And by the way, he would get the tight waist, whatever grip he had. He had a C grip. I don't think he had a butterfly grip, but he had a C grip or a gable grip. And he would get the tight waist and he would start throwing Henry around. And dude, what you notice from that is, this is one of the arguments I always make about the value of grappling. The second round ground and pound, such that he had any, Merab, it was not devastating. There were some decent shots here or there, but it wasn't devastating. But what it was soul-sucking, right? He was riding his hips, turking a leg, doing whatever he could to just hang on the guy, make him carry the weight, force him to like kind of, but there was times where he was like sitting on his own knees, or not, it was on his knees, but like sitting on his own ankles, like, and if you ever done that and when someone's put weight on top of you, when you stand up, your knees feel weird for a little while because they've been compressed the whole time, and it's fatiguing and it's draining and it all goes to your neck and your lower back. He was wearing on a guy, dude. That to me really kind of matters. It doesn't come with ground and pound. You don't get a close submission attempt from it. You don't get any of that shit. But it really can have an effect on a person's demeanor. It can have an effect on their ability to fight the next round. It really has a dramatic impact. And sure enough, it was already a problem for him in round 2. By the time round 3 came along, I thought Merab was just in cruise control. He looked like he could have fought. He said he wants to fight 10 rounds. Well, that's not legal, Merab, but you could understand his enthusiasm. His skill is much better than people realize, but it's not the kind of skill that's going to knock you out right away. He's not going to sub you out and methodically move to mount or from the back, do that kind of stuff. That's not who Merab is. But Merab has a gas tank that is extraordinary. He does have very good skill overall in terms of wrestling and control. He's a little bit happy feet. He kind of bounces a little bit too much and then kind of hops into position, which is not the stablest way to get into position, which is sometimes why I think also with some angle mistakes he can get hit, or it doesn't have as much success early retreating. He has to kind of get calm and then step and slide rather than bounce. It can be a bit of a problem for him, but he is extremely durable. And because he can use grappling as a way to absolutely just, it's like a bloodletting with him, dude. Just a stab and let the blood go and watch these people just become half versions of themselves. That is what Merab does. It's extraordinary, man. Very, very special. And it's weird because it's not like, again, what do we consider exciting? Knockouts are exciting. Submissions are exciting. Big slams. Although, dude, what am I even saying? Hughes versus Trigg toed him. In the rematch between Matt Hughes and Frank Trigg, Matt Hughes gets hit in the balls and he's getting bombed on, and the referee doesn't see it, and finally Matt Hughes rallies and he picks up Frank Trigg and he runs across the octagon while Trigg, by the way, who was a referee in a couple of the bouts tonight, was draped over his shoulder and runs across and then dive bombs him on the other corner. Well, you had Merab do that and take him over to Zuck's stupid face and then just fucking, flatten him right to the canvas. I think this was the 3rd round. I was like, dude. He is the most delightfully insane person in MMA, and I'm 100% here for it. 100% here for it. He'll just put a work rate on you that unless you can match that intensity for as long as the bout goes, you have to either hurt him or you have to match his intensity. And Henry did that in the 1st round. He hurt him and had pretty good intensity where I think Merab was a little bit on the back foot. But that was it. That was it. And I got to say, dude, I actually feel pretty bad for Henry. I don't understand why he sat out his prime. Only he knows the answer to that. But he did. He sat out a big portion of his prime. And he only made $150,000 for this fight tonight, according to the figures that the UFC gave to the California Athletic Commission. It was $150 to show, $150 to win. He didn't win, so it would just be $150. Dude, after taxes and paying out your folks, what are you going to get from that? $60K, $65K maybe? Something like that? For all of that? Sucks, dude. It's hard. Hard way to fight, hard way to make a living. So I totally get why he would, I think before this fight, was saying if I win, go to a title, and if I lose, that's probably gonna be it for me. Yeah, I understand that. I wouldn't want to fight these guys for $150K either. At this age, at age 37, Merab should probably get a title shot, right? If we're talking about Merab, Merab's beaten 3 former champions. At this point, what was the stat that I saw? I forget. I have to go find it. But Merab, here, hold on, see if I can find it. Merab has beaten 3 former champions. He's tied Aljamain Sterling for the longest bantamweight win streak with 9 wins. He moved to number 3 all time for takedowns landed, and then extended his win streak to 10 straight. Dude, he's a beast. He should get the title shot. he should get the winner of Cheeto and Sean O'Malley. I don't see how anyone could disagree with that. I don't know who else would be more deserving of the number one contender spot than him at this point. It's him, and I think for Henry, it's probably it. All right, last but not least for this main card, Anthony Hernandez defeats Roman Kopylov, rear naked choke, 3:23 of round number 1. Dude, Roman Kopylov does everything violent. Everything, dude. He doesn't do anything that's just not like scary to watch. First round, Hernandez lands 20 strikes to Kopylov's 16. And he did get one takedown just at the end, but he didn't get much for it. But by the second round, he got 2 of 3 takedowns for 2 minutes of control time. Kopylov still had more numeric totals, but that doesn't really count in terms of strikes. Story of this fight, Hernandez, first of all, the down blocking from Kopylov was great. The takedown defense along the fence itself was great. But I noticed something at the end of the first. If you notice, he brings his outside leg forward like he was trying to exit. You know how the guys split their stances? If they bring the leg that's on the outside, that's typically, it doesn't always have to be, but typically it should be behind them, right? So if they have a split stance, if you're on this side of the cage, then this leg should be going back. The other one should be going forward. And the reason why is so you can press into the fence so you can cover that, right? So they can't take the back, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do from there. Anyway, I saw that he switched that up. You can do that if you're going to then make an escape for it, but he didn't, and then he gets pushed to his, I think he got pushed forward. Hernandez was able to get kind of behind him a little bit, and I was like, aha, he got him to make a mistake here. He got him to get the positioning off, and sure enough, he was able to use right hooks to kind of keep Kopylov occupied here. And one of the things about shooting, like bending over at the waist like that, Craig Jones has talked about this. Normally when you shoot in wrestling, you want to have your back straight, head up, big tall posture using your head, right? If I go on a head outside single like this, I'm not bent over like this at the waist. I'm over here, high, big tall chest, the whole 9 yards, right? Big posture. You don't have to do that in MMA. You can actually bend over the waist as long as you're just going to run him back to the fence. The fence changes that dynamic. And sure enough, it was right hooks up top. And I actually had to jab a little bit too. And then he gets underneath, pushes him back, and then the whole sequence started. He was able to get his hands together underneath, pulls him out, and from there it was a wrap. Goes for the rear naked choke, and it was so close. And you can see he had the palm to palm initially, and he was trying to hide it behind him, kind of like what Nate Diaz did a little bit with Conor at first when he was snaking it behind him, but it was just palm to palm. It wasn't hand to hand. Maybe I guess that was like Hughes Trigg 1 or 2. I forget which one that was, but anyway. Pulling it behind, but Kopylov resisted and then righted his posture, and Hernandez basically just let go a little bit and then re-sank it into the bicep grip, and then was smiling like I got, like once it was underneath the chin, he knew he got it, and Kopylov tapped. I thought Kopylov did a great job to turn him off the cage. Again, the down blocking was good, the head kicking was amazing. He gave Hernandez a lot of problems, but Hernandez at 185 pounds averages nearly 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. The guy is, they call him the machine. That is such, I mean, Merab too. Merab's the machine. No, what they call him, Fluffy. Excuse me. Merab's the machine. They call him Fluffy. Either fucking way, he could be the machine as well. He has dynamite offense just in terms of the volume of it and how quickly he can figure things out. And if you can't keep up with him playing speed chess with you, it will be curtains for you as well. Again, targeting by Anthony Hernandez, 82% to the head. 82%. 82%, 11% to the body, 5% to the leg. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. That guy is so special. But here's the best part about it. Kopylov didn't look bad. He didn't look bad at all. He looked great for as long as the fight lasted. I mean, you know, except for the very end. But he was game, dude. He was a game opponent. But Hernandez is just an overwhelming force. He needs to be fighting ranked guys. He needs to be fighting in, you know, fight nights, main events, something like that. Like he needs to, let's get that guy in a 5-rounder, right? Let's get him in a 5-rounder for sure. Anthony Hernandez, beast. All right. Let's see what some of your questions are. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Do we have to keep going with the immediate rematches? If anyone deserves it, it's Volk, but this result makes the division so interesting again. I just think that they probably will. I don't know that they need to. This person writes, does Bobby Knuckles fight Izzy for number 1 contender or winner of DDP versus Izzy? Or Sean Strickland? Ilia versus Islam at some point. I'm not interested in that right now. I mean, maybe in the future. I don't know, but not right now. Not right now. How do fighters like Roberto Duran maintain their career at the top for so long? Man defeated Iran Barkley at 38. It's insane what he managed to accomplish. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly how some of those. I mean, we're also talking about one of the greatest to ever do it as well in his particular sport, but Manos de Piedra. But I don't know how to answer that. It's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. Is Ilia versus Max instantly one of the most exciting potential fights of 2024? 1,000,000,000%. Iron chin versus unbelievable power. A lot more than that. Skill on both sides too. Will the UFC go to Spain with a small event? Probably. At some point, probably. This person writes, I noticed Volk switches to southpaw a lot and almost never throws from that southpaw. It's not quite true. Lately, he's been getting caught in transition sometimes. You think him fighting switch actually was a liability? No, that's not really what caught him this time, I don't think. Thoughts on their Pereira Hill versus for main event for 300? I mean, look. 300 is a great card, right? UFC 300 is a phenomenal card. That's not, to me, the most exciting main event, but it's not a bad one as a main event goes, I think. The card is too good to really complain, is what I would say. That's not a crown jewel. You know, that's not Brock versus Mir. It's not John Jones versus DC, or what ended up being, you know, Amanda and Misha. You know, it's not those, but it's a the card itself is too good to complain about, I think. What are the chances that Moreno and Figueiredo fight a fifth time? I don't know how to answer that. With Volk and Izzy losing their belts, Hooker not being anywhere near title contention, and Ulberg maybe not being champ material, do you even believe the glory days of CKB are over? I'd be very cautious about that. Part of any good gym is going to be developing talent and also recruiting it. So let's see who enters their gym in the next 5 years. There's a lot that can go right for them there. This person writes, been watching, I think this guy's a black belt in jiu-jitsu too. He writes, been watching for over a decade now. It never gets any easier watching a pound-for-pound fighter's time at the top come to an end. And these reigns at the top get shorter and shorter. I'm telling you, folks, gone are the days of GSP, Silva, and DJ, and it never gets easier. No, it does not. It is a very difficult thing to do. Which stadium in Spain is better suited for a fight night? Bernabeu, Camp Nou? What is the one that Atletico plays in? The Wanda Metropolitano? That's a big-ass one, too. Camp Nou is a dump. Okay, don't let anyone else tell you. I know they're remodeling it, but just so you know, Camp Nou is a piece of shit. Like, Barcelona, the city, is a beautiful place. It's an amazing place. The city itself is tremendous. Camp Nou is a dump. Like, don't let anyone tell you it's anything other than a dump. It fucking sucks. I've been there 3 times. It's a dump, just so you know. Everyone I wanted to win tonight lost. Dude, I don't know what to tell you. Now that I officially hate MMA, what sport do you suggest I get into? Dude, you'll be all right. You'll be all right, dude. This is the life cycle. You just got to learn to live with it. Favorites were 11-0 until the main event. Ilia was literally the ultimate underdog tonight. Yeah, true. What is Ilia's next fight? Again, probably going to be a rematch, but if not, the Max fight makes sense. I love that fight. Probability of Topuria fighting Conor in Spain? Probably 0, right? Because it's going to be a pay-per-view fight. Will Ilia be the one to finally crack Max's chin? I'll tell you this much. I would not want Max to test that. Could go real bad for him. Looking at the 35 and over club stat, do you think finishing ability is the linchpin of being able to hold a title into later stages? P.S. DJ beat Adriano over 35, not UFC, but still worth mentioning. Yes, it is a very valuable achievement, but DJ was 31 or 32 when he lost to Cejudo in his last fight in the UFC. He does not qualify. Was there any warning from Volkanovski's corner about circling going into his direction of Topuria's power side. I think he was more just trying to go side to side and not just constantly circle away from it, because that can cause you problems as well. I don't think his corner failed him like that, no. Someone says, lift the godforsaken curse, Luke. It's not a curse. It's observed reality. It's the world in which you live. If it was just magic, we could just undo the magic. It's not magic, man. It's a difficult sport. It's a difficult sport. Who hits harder at 145, Emmett or Ilia? Pound for pound, they might hit equally hard, but Ilia is going to be much more accurate. How long until Topuria becomes the biggest active star in the sport? Well, he's got to win fights. He has to keep winning fights. Otherwise, it's not going to go well for him. His reign at the top will be short as well. And he has deficiencies too. Let's be very clear about that. So before we start talking about how big he will be, let's recognize he needs to keep winning. You lose the title after one or two of these fights. Who cares, How can someone get a title shot when they haven't finished a fight in nearly 3 years? I'm not sure what that's referring to. In an alternate timeline where Volk didn't take the rematch with Islam and we get Volk coming into his peak, does it go differently? I don't think so. I think that was just a reminder that the end was upon us. Regarding Volk's comments about his mental health after Islam 2, do you ever truly worry about a fighter's life once the end of their career is near, when it doesn't end how they would have hoped? Yeah, sure. Tony Ferguson was there tonight. I've been kind of concerned, but he appeared to be in good spirits. I guess we'll see how it goes. But yeah, dude, absolutely. I worry about it all the time. I mean, that's not even counting like the CTE. This person asks, are you going to be insufferable about Ilia's win, or are you going to be cool? No, I'm going to be insufferable. I'm going to be super insufferable. And I mean that with absolute sincerity. I intend to be insufferable about it. I intend to remind everyone, like, told you. And not just the 35 and over thing, like, picked him on CBS Sports HQ, picked him on MK, picked him on the live. I mean, I never ever wavered, and I had to hear all of this chirping about who got 10-7'd at the what do they call it? The Upright Citizens Brigade sketch comedy tour. Yes, he got 10-7'd at the Upright Citizens Brigade sketch comedy tour. Yeah, it turns out Ilia Topuria is not that great at sketch comedy. It's true. Quite bad at it, especially when he's doing that in his third language. But he can fight. He can do that. And I was focused on that the whole time. So yes, I intend to be very insufferable. But the good news is no more insufferable than everyone else was about how Topuria sucked, about how Topuria was never going to win, how he was going to get taught a lesson, about how all of the most meaningless, totally wrong shit that everyone floated this week. I'll be no more insufferable than that. But I do intend to be insufferable, yes. That's part of what I intend to do, absolutely. Where are we on this? Jesus, my Twitter feed has blown the fuck up. Yeah, I think that's it, boys and girls. I think that's it for tonight. Tried to warn you. It's not magic. It's not a curse. It's not some special voodoo. It is observed reality, and that makes it, frankly, the most, to me, terrifying thing about it, is that we know it won't happen every time, but we know for the vast majority of these guys, especially 155 and below, when they hit 35 and they're trying to defend or win titles, the universe is going to pull the emergency brake on it. One more time, I'm going to remind them, the prime or their career, it will end, and it might happen sooner than you think. It's hard to inventory your decline when you're feeling the middle of the approval. It's hard to inventory all the things that aren't going right when so many other things are finally going right. I hate it for him, dude. I hate it for him. I really do. I hate it for him. It's so unfair that these guys take so long to get paid, so long to get adulation, so long to get respect, and it gets taken from him so quickly. But you should have some heart if you're a Volkanovski fan, because all he is maybe the best featherweight of all time. He's one of the very best fighters of all time. Losing tonight doesn't change that. Doesn't change a thing about that. If he had won tonight, that would have been, frankly, like a huge feather in his cap. Obviously, it's not great that he lost, but he is one of the most talented fighters, one of the best champions we've ever had, one of the best sportsmen that we've ever had. Changed the game for MMA in Australia, probably to New Zealand to some extent as well, I'm sure. And we're all richer for what Volkanovski has contributed to the fight game, but his peak is probably past us. It's probably past us. So I don't make the rules, but I do observe them. All right? All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video, hit subscribe, do all that fun shit. And we'll have some extra stuff for you guys this week. We've already got some stuff planned. Some fun post-298 stuff and a whole lot more. Okay? I love you. I'm glad you watched. I hope you got something out of it. We appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button one more time. And until next time, boys and girls, get some sleep. Peace. Love you.